Hello, everyone. Jax West. Before anybody asks me, not a family member. Oh, look at my hair. Woohoo. Not a family member. I just run Stephen Avery Project and a supporter. So I was emailed, I was out, and I was emailed that there's been a filing today. So luckily our great moderators from Stephen Avery Project was able to get this posted in both Stephen Avery Project and MAM Gossip, so you can read it for yourselves. I have not read it yet because I was driving home. So first I'm going to read this. Now remember, I'm the person who doesn't pretend to be a wannabe lawyer. So I'm not the person to ask your legal questions to, because I don't know and aren't going to pretend to know. So this was emailed to me, and it says it is on letterhead from the Wisconsin Court of Appeals to Judge Flowers and the clerk of the circuit court, the assistant attorney general, the district attorney, Stephen Richards, another assistant attorney general, and Kathleen. And it says, you are hereby notified that the court has entered, okay. You are hereby notified that the court has entered the following order. Stephen A. Avery, by counsel, appeals from the circuit court's denial of his Wisconsin statute 974.06 post-conviction motions. He moves this court to stay the appeal and remand to the circuit court so that he may raise new claims premised on the recent discovery of, quote, a previously undisclosed police report, unquote, dated September 20, 2011, which, according to Avery's appellate counsel, reflects law enforcement's, quote, transfer of multiple suspected human bones from the Manitowoc County gravel pit to Whiting Funeral Home for return to Teresa Halbach's family, unquote. Avery alleges that the state violated its statutory duty to preserve evidence, see Wisconsin Statute 968.205, and that the state actions violated Avery's constitutional due process rights, see Youngblood versus Arizona. The state has filed an objection to Avery's remand motion on the ground that it constitutes, quote, a new and separate action, unquote, which is unrelated to the orders Avery presently appeals, is unnecessary to the resolution of his pending appeal, and, quote, would result in unnecessary delay and litigation, unquote. The state's objection points out that this is, in effect, Avery's third remand request. The state's objection does not address the merits of Avery's claimed statutory and constitutional violations, and it has not responded to Avery's supplemental filings alleging the possible destruction of evidentiary items, which it appears the parties previously agreed to preserve. The state suggests that the appeal is languishing and that if Avery wishes to pursue new claims outside the scope of Wisconsin Statute 974.06 post-conviction orders presently on appeal, he could dismiss the pending appeal or wait until its conclusion to file his new claims. As to the former, Avery understandably disagrees, aware that dismissing this appeal will preclude review of the underlying orders entered to date. Having considered the parties' submissions, we determine that the best course of action is to grant Avery's motion to stay the appeal and to remand under Wisconsin Statute 808.0755, quote, for action upon specific issues, unquote. As the state's response acknowledges, the decision to remand is left to this court's discretion. Though we are not required to remand, we determine that this procedure strikes an appropriate balance given the specific circumstances of this case. Due to this case's extensive history, there is a benefit to having existing claims developed or litigated while they are relatively fresh, rather than positioning the claims to be procedurally barred in a future proceeding. For these reasons, we desire a ruling on the merits so that all claims to date can be considered in a single appeal. The briefing in this appeal has not commenced. There appears to be some potential overlap between the quote old unquote and quote new unquote issues. Therefore, it is ordered that this appeal is remanded forthwith to the circuit court to permit Stephen A. Avery to pursue a supplemental post-conviction motion raising, quote, claims for relief in connection with the state's violation of Wisconsin Statute 968.205 and Youngblood versus Arizona, unquote. It is further ordered that any supplemental post-conviction motion shall be filed in the circuit court within 14 days. Remember that 14 days, people, because I don't remember numbers. It is further ordered that the circuit court shall conduct any proceedings necessary to address the claims raised in the supplemental post-conviction motion and shall enter an order containing its findings and conclusions. It is further ordered that if a party intends to order a transcript of any post-remand hearing, the party shall do so within 10 days after the circuit court enters its order deciding the supplemental post-conviction motion. The ordering party shall file a statement on transcript. Any such transcript shall be filed and served within 30 days after its request. The ordering party shall provide the court reporter with a copy of this order. It is further ordered that the circuit court clerk shall retransmit the record to this court within 20 days after the latter of the entry of the circuit court order deciding the supplemental post-conviction motion or the filing of any post-remand hearing transcript, if ordered. The record shall include any papers filed pursuant to this remand. It is further ordered that the appeal is stayed until the return of the record following remand. It is further ordered that the appellant shall file an appellate's opening brief presenting all grounds for relief within 40 days after the return of the record. And that is the entire thing. So, this is a win for Kathleen and Stephen. So this now goes back to Judge Flowers, where it's a big deal. I shouldn't be eating these jelly beans while I'm trying to talk. So it's all on these bones. So thank you again, Carol Ann Fitzgerald, for being for your due diligence and sending this along to Kathleen. So this means they will have something back with Judge Flowers to discuss these bones that were from the Manitowoc gravel pit that were sent to the Hallback family and should not have been. Let me look up this text that I got from somebody. Okay, no, they're not explaining anything there. All right, so let me scroll through your comments. So Matthew says it means there will be a season 3. So people confused on what is happening. So this means that the current path that Kathleen was on for Stephen gets to be paused. What the state kept wanting is you have to continue the current thing you're going on, and you can't bring up anything new until this has finished, and then you can go back to that. So what this is doing is, no, you get to pause that, go back to the lower court to go bring up how this suspected pelvic bone that was in the Manitowoc gravel pit, why it was returned to the Hallback family in 2011, and why did Wiegert cover that up? Since Wiegert is the one that signed that he gave it to Karen Hallback, and Karen Hallback signed for it when it went to the funeral home. So we get to go back to Judge Flowers' court and discuss these bones, because Sweaty Sweat Sweat claimed, these aren't the bones you're looking for. I'm not going to talk 20 seconds on these bones that were over here in the gravel pit. We don't even think they're human. Let's not pay attention to these. But then they have in their own filings saying that it's human bone, and you give it to the Hallback family like it's Teresa. You can't do that because it's evidence. And as long as somebody is incarcerated for the crime, that stuff has to remain in evidence for future testing. So why are you giving evidence to the Hallback family in 2011? Can't do that. And if, according to Sweaty Sweat Sweat's one theory, because remember, he's got two totally different theories. For Stephen did it in the library with the candlestick, and Brendan did it in the dining room with the, butter knife. So Sweaty Sweat Sweat gave two totally different stories for Stephen and Brendan, but regardless of either story he told, the Manitowoc gravel pit never came into play. Even though search dogs went there and stuff was recovered there. And if there's stuff at the gravel pit, it doesn't fit with their theory and makes no sense. While Stephen and or Brendan would do something all the way at the gravel pit and then bring it back to Stephen's place and do stuff in his burn barrel, do stuff in his burn pit, throw some stuff in Barb's burn pit, sprinkle it all around your own place when you're already at the gravel pit. That's not the gravel pit is not next to the quarry. I mean, the salvage yard, because it goes salvage yard, quarry, gravel pit. So it's not even the closest thing. So this is a win for Kathleen and Stephen. Now, Judge Flowers rules against Stephen every time. But Kathleen just keeps finding more and more, thanks to, people on Reddit and Carol Ann Fitzgerald, who is in multiple groups, as well as, she's in our MAM gossip group, who have been researching and found that. So the documents that the state had turned over to Kathleen when she took on Stephen's case 3 years ago did not include the chain of custody log showing that the pelvic bone was given to the Hallback family in 2011. The last document she had said it was in storage. But then when that stuff got FOIA'd by, just a concerned citizen, they see that it went to the Hallback family. So if it don't fit, you must have quit. So this is really good news. And I really, my mind is all kind of jumbled here because I'm an advocate for 3 different cases, and one got really good news yesterday, one got really good news this morning, and now Stephen got really good news. So this is like really bizarre to me that there's positive movement in all three cases right now. And I don't I don't know what to think. People asking, can she move it to take it out of Judge Flowers' hands? She's tried that before and it was denied. So I don't know what luck she'll have on it. But I also think that Kathleen will really like just continuing to bring it back to Flowers, because it's also like an in your face. Here's just more proof that you're wrong. So this is fabulous. I don't know the next steps. I don't, for sure on what's going to happen or when. As soon as we get it, we will, keep you up on it. Like I said, I didn't even know there was a filing. I got an email. It was sent to me. I just left a restaurant and it was emailed to me. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? And then I just send it to the moderators and I'm like, look at this and get it posted. I don't know what it is. So, me reading it with you guys just now is the first time I've read it. So I haven't taken it all in. So, but, yeah, as soon as we know anything, we will fill you in. If we know of like any court hearings or whatever, if it's open to public, you can bet I will go and I will be there if I'm told in advance and I can get there. Wow. And then on the other two cases, I'm sure you've heard me talk about before, Kent Pellegrini and Melissa Kaluzinski. I can't say what's happening in those two cases, but there's good stuff in both of those too. So it's just been like a really amazing day, and I'm like shocked right now, and I don't know what to say. So, all right, let me scroll through your comments here. Shauna says, do we know what the family did with the bones? Buried, cremated? We don't know for sure. Kelly says, it'll never be a fair hearing with Judge Flowers. She should be removed from the case. I agree, Kelly. I don't know the law. I say this all the time, but I don't understand why it goes back to a judge who's already ruled against you. Because how many people will say I was wrong? I'm a proud flip-flopper. I know people use flip-flopper as a negative, but I use it as a positive, that if I'm convinced of something and you can prove to me why I'm wrong, I will happily then say I was wrong and flip to the other side. I actually did that I'm going to be working for an organization for the wrongfully convicted. And the main case that they're dealing with, that they're covering right now, is when I Google it and look into that case, everything just says this girl is guilty. But I've learned my lesson from, Stephen's case and such, that stuff you find out there, you can't just go by it, and so I sat down with the president of the organization last week, and she went over all the evidence with me to show me how that person is innocent, and it makes sense. And it's, so I can say the sky is green, but if you're going to show me proof that it's blue, I will say I was wrong and the sky is blue. So that's how I would be as a judge, but a lot of people aren't like that. It's, I said this and I'm going to do whatever I have to keep that as the way it is, and those people should not be running our judicial system. You're supposed to be able to be impartial and look at the facts and judge things just on the facts, but that's not what we get. Gwen says, why would the Halbach family take and bury bones that they knew might not even been human? Makes no sense. Well, what I always say about the Hallback family is they're just believing whatever the police or law enforcement says. They have no reason to doubt law enforcement, and I don't think that they pay attention to what is everything that's going on. They're just getting what law enforcement tells them, and they've got no reason to doubt them. So if they're given this, they're not looking at where did this bone come from or what this bone had been labeled. Uyghur's just going to them and saying, here, this is part of Teresa. I don't even know how you even say that, but we want to return this to you. So they just took it. Alice is saying, what exactly has to happen in 14 days? A new filing or a ruling? Let me open that document up again. Let me see where it is in here. It says, it is further ordered that any supplemental post-conviction motion shall be filed in the circuit court within 14 days. So any supplemental motions have to be filed within 14 days. And then it says, it is further ordered that if a party intends to order a transcript of any post-remand hearing, the party shall do so within 10 days after the circuit court enters its order deciding the supplemental post-conviction motion. The ordering party shall file a statement on transcript. Any such transcript shall be filed and served within 30 days after its request. The ordering party shall provide the court reporter with a copy of this order. And then the last thing it says is, it is further ordered that the appellant shall file an appellant's opening brief presenting all grounds for relief within 40 days after the return of the record. So the document is posted for you to read it for yourself. So, we should be hearing something within a month. And for the people asking for a recap, so Kathleen had been asking for, okay, let me just try and put it in words so I understand, because I don't understand the legal mumbo jumbo either. And Sky is very happy about, I always go the wrong way, that window Jesus can be seen. So what Kathleen was asking for is his current trajectory be paused. All right, because she can't introduce anything that hasn't been discussed already. So she had requested a pause in it. And what the state wants her to have to do is she has to either follow this to its completion, the original one, or she needs to just stop it, go back to this, and then start that whole procedure over again. Kathleen wanted a pause because she wants to discuss this pelvic bone that Sweaty Sweat said he didn't even think was human. That was at the Manitowoc gravel pit. And the court has agreed with Kathleen. So it gets paused and now bumps back down to Judge Flowers to discuss this pelvic bone and why Uyghur gave it to the Hallback family in 2011 as Teresa's bones. So this is really good news. Stephen's going to get a hearing, a new trial, something. They just can't. Kathleen is tightening the screws on them just more and more, of showing how they robbed Stephen to his right of a fair trial. And we will again say, I've said it several times, it's been posted. We again thank Carol Ann Fitzgerald, who's a member of many different Making a Murderer groups. She's in our MAM gossip group and discusses this stuff, as well as Reddit, because it's Redditors that really pick apart this case, that they all looking into this and them filing a FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, to get documents that then the state had hidden from Kathleen. The state didn't show Kathleen that they gave these bones to the Hallback family in 2011. It's only because these, good supporters have been tearing this apart and found this out. And then Carol Ann Fitzgerald is the one that emailed it to Kathleen. So, Kathleen is great, but she's great also because of the team that's behind her. She doesn't do this alone. So, and even with the team that Kathleen has, things get missed because there's so many things wrong with this case. So it's good to have the fresh eyes. So this is great. Oh, Andy's saying, why a video? Can't you just type what has happened? Be much better for latecomers. Well, Andy, the actual filing is posted here, so you can read it for yourself. And then I went live to discuss it for those who want to discuss it. People like when it goes live and they can ask their questions or discuss it with each other live here. So that's why there's a live video. But the document itself is posted, so you can read it for yourself. And as Ricky says, rewatch it then, because yes, once this is done being live, it gets posted and it stays up here. Plus, people keep asking me the same questions and I repeat the same thing over and over and over again. So, all right, let me go to your comments. People asking for a recap, but I just recapped it. So hopefully you got that already. Jack says your law enforcement are so corrupt in the United States, right? We need serious criminal justice reform here. Debbie says Teresa's brother knows something. I agree. Katie says, hi, what's happened? Someone quickly tell me, please. The quick thing to say is Kathleen asked for a stay in remand and she got it. The court just ruled in Kathleen's favor. So that's the quick thing. So Stephanie just noticed, why do I go the wrong? I'm so bad with that. But let me tell you, because I'm really old. And so when computers first became a thing and when I used a mouse for the very first time, it took me forever to get my cursor to go where it went to go. So I'm not coordinated at all. Somebody complaining they can't watch. Wait, hold on. What happened there? Can't watch your videos because the windows are so bright. I get it. Sometimes I close it and sometimes I don't. But the thing that I'd say is you're not here really to watch me. You're listening to me. Looking at me, is there anything that you need to be looking at me for? I'd prefer not. I'd prefer to just put up a screen and you don't look at me at all. That would be great for me. Because I hate looking at myself. Sherilyn says returning bones, and now it just disappeared. So sorry, Sherilyn, because when so many people post, it starts to boot it up, so I miss it. Haley says, thanks for your breakdown. Makes a lot more sense. Haley says, I hope the guilters are just screaming. Well, the guilters are always going to have something, always something they want to rip on Kathleen for or whatever. They're stupid. Kevin says, my understanding, reading the document, Steve will get his day in circuit court. Yeah. Tony says, how's Steven's mom and dad doing? I just give the answer that Kathleen gave in her last Q&A on Twitter, where she said that, they're getting older every day and their health is declining. So it's always a big deal that you need Steven out as soon as possible. So, he can have some quality time with his parents. Danielle says, I read somewhere that Teresa's car was seen somewhere else before turning up at the Avery yard. Is this correct? Do you know? Yes, Danielle. So there is a dam it's actually near Barb Barb's current house with Scott Toddick, that several people had seen the RAV4 parked there on November 3rd and 4th, I believe. So several people, and one person reported it to Andy Colborn, and another person reported it to Scott Toddick. But nobody cared. So, yeah, it's true. The RAV4 was found off or seen by multiple people off of the salvage yard property days after she was reported missing, and days after the death certificate says that she died. Jesse says, wouldn't this go to high court because the constitutional right been broke? Well, first it has to go down to the circuit court to determine, for there to be a vote on, was that broke? And then you'll see where it goes from there. So, but we first have to go back to Judge Flowers. Unless Kathleen is able to get it to move to a different judge. But I know she tried that recently and was denied. Charlotte says, I appreciate the live video because you helped me understand it by explaining it. Thank you. I try, but I just always want it said, because I know guilters rip on me like crazy, and I don't really care. But they'll make fun of how I describe things or whatever, that I'm just an idiot and don't know. So that's why I make it known from the get-go. I'm not claiming, I don't claim to be a legal expert. I'm not basically a lawyer pretending to be a lawyer, nothing lawyer. I'm not claiming to be Kathleen Zellner's BFF or get secret information from Kathleen or anything like that. I'm just a supporter like all of the rest of you here. So I don't understand a lot of this stuff either. I do the best I can to understand it, but I have to have people explain it to me too. And I also like when we do these lives, because a lot of you are way smarter than me, so you can explain it to me. So, all right, let me scroll. Kenton says, after Kathleen gets Steve free, what happens to Brendan? Well, Ken, it will depend on how she gets him free. I mean, if Kathleen is able to prove who really killed Teresa or what really happened to her, because again, I will say, and this is no disrespect to the Hallback family, but I believe we have no idea what happened to Teresa. I'm not saying she's alive. I don't think she's alive, but we have no idea what happened to her. That's why it bothers me too when people will say she was raped. You don't know if she's been raped. There's no proof she's been raped. So, we just don't know what happened to her. Becky's asking, what does that mean, please? What are you asking? What does what mean? So let me know. Haley says, that's right, LOL, but you're pretty to look at too. Oh, barf. I wish I hadn't read that. But thank you, Haley. Jill says, what about the man named Zipperer? Anyone heard of him? The Zipperers. So the Zipperer house was one of Teresa's stops that day. So, but it wasn't a scheduled stop. It was a hustle shot. So the Zipperer family did not know she was coming to take a picture of Jason Zipperer's car that he had listed for sale, that the car was on the property. Because now remember, she gets paid double if she gets a hustle shot, meaning somebody who hasn't already made the sale with Auto Trader to list their vehicle. So if she just finds somebody who had a car listed for sale on their property and gets them to then list it with Auto Trader, she gets double the money. So Jason Zipper had the car for sale at his grandparents' house with a for sale sign on it. As she's driving around, she's seen it. So so she was going there to take an unsolicited photo. And the men weren't at home because Jason Zipper was in high school at that time. So he was at school, I believe, is what it was. George Zipper was at work. And then, so it was George's wife, and I can't remember her name right now, that was at home. And so she showed Teresa where the car was, and she had been gardening. And then afterwards, Teresa left her the information and a copy of an Auto Trader. So if Jason now did want to list a car for sale with Auto Trader, the picture's already done. So all you have to do is call them and pay them the $40 and you're in. So when Teresa is missing and law enforcement calls the Zipper family, George Zipper, who is like a known angry drunk, was really ornery and didn't want to talk to them. If you go to StephenAveryCase.org, you can look up when law enforcement on the several different times that they talked to George Zipper. And they were very kind of intimidated by him. Law enforcement didn't even want to go talk to him. And so George Zipper had said at one time that, you know, so now they're trying to talk to this man about a missing girl that had been on your property. And George Zipper's response was, if she was at my house, she was trespassing and I want her arrested. And he had said that if she came on his property, he would shoot her and feed her to his dogs. So at one point, way early on in my falling down the Stephen Avery rabbit hole, I really thought the Zippers had done it. And so on my first trip up to Manitowoc, I went also to the Zippers house. And I had timed it, how long it took me from the salvage yard to get to the Zippers house. I took pictures of the Zippers house. They're in a photo album somewhere here and in MAM Gossip. So that's who the Zippers are. Sorry, that took me forever. Oh, and so I again didn't answer about what happens to Brendan if Stephen gets out. So it doesn't automatically mean that Brendan gets out, because look at another one of Kathleen's cases, Ryan Ferguson. You can watch it. It's on YouTube, I believe. Dream Killer. It's Dream/Killer. And Ryan Ferguson was in there because Charlie, I can't remember his last name right now. Why can't I remember Charlie's last name? Charlie confessed to this murder and said he dreamed that he and Ryan Ferguson did it. And then Kathleen ended up getting Ryan out, but Charlie's still in there. And difference is Charlie confessed and Ryan never did. So that's what you have with Brendan. Brendan's confessed. It's a coerced confession. We all know that confession is not real. You know, it's clear as day that Brendan was coerced into that. And I have never seen it more clear or clearly, however correct it is. Wednesday last week, I went and visited both Kent Pellegrini and Melissa Kaluzinski in prison. And Melissa is like Brendan, where she's got low IQ and she's got social issues and anxiety. And so she was talking to me about something that recently happened to her that upset her. And I can't get into specifics of it, but it really made me go, I knew Melissa's confession was always coerced, and, you know, that they kept her in there for 9 hours and all this. But now in person, her talking to me about and this wasn't her case that she was talking about. It was something else. But seeing how that affected her and what her response to was on that, it's like, oh boy, I can really see how easy it would be to manipulate her and get her to say something that she didn't do, that she did something she didn't do. And I used to talk to Brendan on the phone. I haven't talked to Brendan in 2 years, I think, because his mom cut off my communication with Brendan. But when I would talk to Brendan, he wants to talk about his favorite Pokemon, his favorite video game, hamburgers, stuff, childlike things, even though he was 28 years old when I'm talking to him, So, but sadly, Stephen's case doesn't mean the door gets open for Brendan, but it will help. So, let me scroll. Samantha says, if Stephen is freed, then there's no proof he killed her. Therefore, Brendan's whole confession would have to be thrown out, I would think, but who knows with how all this has went so far, LOL. Well, here's the thing, though. Some people think Stephen is innocent and Brendan is guilty, and not that Brendan is guilty that he did something that he's covering for Bobby. And so that the things that he has said really pertain to Bobby. So that's what people would continue to use then on poor Brendan. That he's just, the stuff he said is still true, but it is Bobby and Scott who did it. So unfortunately, like I said, whatever Kathleen does for Stephen doesn't immediately open the door for Brendan, but it will help. Carlos says the ex and the sheriff who didn't say nothing about her SUV parked in the side, he moved it, shake my head. Yeah. Leanne says, I truly believe Scott Toddick knows and was involved. I agree. Kimberly says, oh my God, the dude is guilty. Face it already. What dude is guilty? Kimberly, are you claiming that Stephen is guilty? So you need to elaborate. And if you think Stephen is guilty, why are you here? Leanne says, why was Scott Toddick so angry all the time, anytime his name was brought into things? Guilty. Well, he's got a, little anger issue. You can go into the Wisconsin correctional records and look up the people that Scott Toddick has assaulted, mostly women. Leanne says, yeah, Bobby Dassey too, the two of them, all that sick stuff on Bobby's computer. Yeah, and I believe the stuff on Bobby's computer was the leverage that the state was using to have Bobby be their star witness against Stephen. I don't even think law enforcement, because law enforcement, they weren't going to look at anything unless it was pointing at Stephen. So they weren't looking at anything other than, so did they see this child porn and these murdered women on Bobby's computer? Sure, but I don't think they automatically thought it meant he did something with Teresa, because again, they're not following any real evidence. They're only following their made up evidence. So I believe they're thinking minimally, Bobby's a perv, and we're going to now use that against him to make him be our star witness. Just like when Barb was arrested at that time for having a large amount of Scott Toddick's pot, all of a sudden that disappeared too. So, Haley says, show us your tattoos. That would take all day because I am sleeved on both arms and one leg and my back and everywhere. I do have a Brendan tattoo. Let me scroll. Susan says, I am with Catherine. Bobby Dassey is the murderer. Well, everything that Kathleen has found so far sure points to Bobby Dassey. So it totally fits. So I believe Bobby Dassey killed Teresa Halbach. Scott Taddock helped with the cover-up. Possibly Mike Osmondson helped with the body cover-up. And then Ryan Hilgas and Scott Blodorn and Michael Halbach helped the cops with the cover-up of the RAV4. So, and I think Kathleen's evidence is all pointing that direction. Becky says it was so heartbreaking watching that forced confession. Yeah, that's one of the most, it makes you so angry. Janine says, has Brendan been asked since his first interview what happened or what he saw? Janine, by law enforcement or just in general? Because law enforcement asked him a million different times because he's constantly questioned until they get the answer they want. Haley says, Brendan's whole confession tape wasn't even played for his jury. It's ridiculous. It's so obvious. And that's something I never like when people go, well, he's guilty because a jury says so. A jury doesn't have all the evidence. So I really don't like it. I don't like it at all. A jury is not told everything that they should be told on a case. And a jury can be manipulated especially when you're going to have two people that are attached to the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department on the jury. And then when you're going to have people from the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department hanging out with the jury, having dinner with them, drinking beers with them. Why are they able to do that? So Josh says boring. What's boring, Josh? Are you again another person who's going to say that Stephen is guilty? Because then why are you here? Judith is asking, am I related to the Averys? No, I am not. And somebody else has answered that already. Becky says, wow, Bobby is really creepy though. Yeah. And the woman he's married to was his girlfriend at this time, a high school girlfriend. So, okay, people again asking about me. No, I am not related to the Avery family. I have met many of the family. The family currently does not like me. We've talked about this before. The family does not like me because a lot of the family are in this just to make money off of supporters. And they keep having fundraisers to make money for themselves. And we here at Stephen Avery Project do not support that. We say, if you want to help Stephen or Brendan, why aren't you giving money to Stephen and Brendan? So put it directly in their commissaries or give it to their lawyers. So the family members do not like that. I won't help them put money in their own pockets. But I'm sorry, they're not owed any money. They're just not. These are family members who, when Stephen was arrested, they all said he's guilty, and we're glad he was gone. There are people who didn't visit him the entire time he was in prison until, Making a Murderer came out, and it was a big deal, and everybody thought he was innocent. And now all of a sudden the family's like, oh, yay, he's innocent. Look at me, and give me money for me to go out to dinner. So Voice of Reason is saying, who is Mike Osmondson? Mike Osmondson is Bobby Dassey's best friend who hunts with him, and they're still friends to this day. And so Mike Osmondson was also questioned. He was the one that there's the story of Stephen allegedly saying, hey, you want to help me get rid of a body? That's Mike Osmondson. Laura says, oh my God, Kathleen just posted Court of Appeals granted motion to stay. Okay, yeah, I've been on live, so I'm not following any of that. But the Stephen Avery Project moderators, I'm sure, have gotten Kathleen's tweet, and we'll post that in here in MAM Gossip. I will be on here for roughly 10 more minutes to make this. We're at 49 minutes I've been on, so I'll round this out to an hour. David says, what about that brain machine they used on Stephen in MAM2? Sorry, don't know the correct name of it. It's brain fingerprinting. Oh, it just scrolled. Now, did I just miss it? I just missed it. Ugh. So I don't have the rest of your thing because now it just scrolled up and it won't let me go up there. But yeah, that brain fingerprinting thing is pretty cool. When I first had heard about it before saw Making a Murderer 2, I was like, this is some weird mumbo jumbo stuff. And I didn't even want to pay any attention to it. But then when you see it in Making a Murderer 2, it's like, oh, this is really interesting. So, people that are posting that Kathleen just tweeted, if you could copy and paste it right into the comments in here, that would be great. And the moderators have posted that as well. Len saying, does this mean a new trial? It means it's going to be kicked back down to Judge Flowers. So we're going to get, Stephen's going to get something. You know, what's all going to happen, we don't know. But as soon as, you know, we know anything, we'll post it. You know, but this is good news for Stephen. And as I've said several times already, this is due to Kathleen and her team and Carol Ann Fitzgerald and all the other people out there that was FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, getting the documents. But it was Carol Ann Fitzgerald who actually sent this to Kathleen about these bones being given to the Hallback family. That they're not allowed to do, first and foremost, because it's evidence. This stuff was not listed as Teresa's remains. It's evidence that has to remain in evidence as long as Stephen is incarcerated. So when testing changes and becomes, more evolved or whatever, that evidence is there to help Stephen in his appeal process. But also, you said it wasn't Teresa. So why are you giving these? You're not allowed to give it to, have it leave evidence, period. But you said it wasn't Teresa, and you gave it to Teresa's family. Jeffrey says, Jax, you have got a dictaphone, so you don't have to keep explaining who you are. I explain myself a million. Every time I'm on, it doesn't matter, Jeffrey, what I do. Somebody will tune in and will always get the questions on how am I related to the family and how are Stephen's parents and what's new. We get them over and over again. Jesse says, I think your Facebook page is more powerful than the MAM series, more info. Well, the Making a Murderer series is everything. There wouldn't be this page if it wasn't for them. I had never heard of this case. Except for Making Murder. And it's something back when I was friends with Scott Toddick, and then Scott Toddick got mad at me. And so his slam on me is, why wasn't I there when this was happening? And it's like, well, why wasn't I there when this was happening? Because I had no clue. I didn't know about this. All right, people keep telling me to go look at Kathleen's tweet. So let me try and bring up Twitter on my other screen. I don't ever do Twitter. All right, so Kathleen said, Avery update. We won. Back to the circuit court. # we wins. And then she tagged Ryan Ferguson, Zellner Law, TikTok Manitowoc, her friend Michelle Melkin, and Making a Murderer. So there you go. So, and then somebody telling me to scroll down, but I haven't scrolled down yet, but I've read it. I will read it again. Avery update. She posted this tweeted this 10 minutes ago. We won. Tons of exclamation points. Back to the circuit court. # truth wins. Woohoo. And then, Though, okay, so I'm looking at her other stuff. There's nothing. Ugh. Okay, I'm not looking at that. John says, please review what happened today. I'm late jumping on and my video froze. What does this mean for Stephen? This is going back to Judge Flowers to discuss the bone, the gravel pit bone. Voice of Reason says, thank you. Sounds like Mike was helping Bobby frame Stephen. Yeah, so that's who Mike Osmondson is. So I do think he knows something. You know, Bobby's been his best friend forever. Kelly says, how come the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department has not been investigated by the FBI for all the cover-ups, gross wrongdoing? Well, because the people that were in power in Wisconsin didn't care. So maybe that's going to change now that there's a new governor and a new attorney general. Thank you, Diane. I see that you posted Kathleen's tweet. So, yeah. So we've got, 4 minutes to go here. I just need to keep summarizing because people keep jumping on new and asking what it is. So again, Kathleen asked for a pause in the current proceedings so they can discuss this bone, and it's been approved. So now it goes back to Judge Flowers, and they will discuss this bone. And what we get from that, we'll see. I don't think she can keep denying this. I mean, this is huge that they gave this bone that they claim is not Teresa to Teresa's family. Because again, if there is nothing in Sweaty Sweat's theory of Stephen going to the Manitowoc gravel pit. So if Teresa is at the gravel pit, then Stephen didn't do it and somebody else did because Stephen was at home. Sweaty Sweat has all the evidence showing that Stephen was home all that time. So how is he at the gravel pit? Brendan was at home. He's got all the evidence. Just ask him. They were at home. Yeah, Teresa's at the gravel pit. Remember, Stephen's house, salvage yard, quarry, gravel pit. Way far away. So, David's saying it again. The brain machine proves Stephen had no recollection of the events. Why couldn't they use that on Bobby to see if there is any signs? Because Bobby has to agree to it. They've offered to give it to everybody for free, David, the brain fingerprinting, and nobody's taken them up on it. So you can't force them to do it. Stephen says, how heavily involved is Kathleen now? Is she still working as heavily on Avery's case as she was? I feel so bad for Stephen. He's clearly not the murderer. Who is? I don't know. But I think as soon as he's heard, it will be obvious. Well, as an advocate for 3 of Kathleen's cases, in my opinion, Stephen's case is her number 1. So yes, she is all on top of this. Randall is saying, is Judge Suckowitz presiding over the case? Yes, that's who Judge Flowers is Angela Suckowitz. Judith says, it just disappeared. Can I scroll back up? No, I cannot. All right. Jill says, she says, back to the circuit court. Correct. John says, oh, jeez. Sorry, dogs just scared me. John says, amazing news. Please, let's get this guy out. Your legal system is so confusing. Absolutely. Oh, now they hit my desk. Angel says, wow, you were friends with Scott Todek? Yes, I was. At one point, I was friends with both Barb and Scott. At one time, I was friends with Carla, Stephen's niece. And then I found out what those people are really about and not friends with them any longer. Angel says, yeah, you read my woohoo, haha, you said it well. Sand says, this is the same judge. Yes, the same judge. It'll be kicked back down to the circuit court to Angela Suckowitz. Natasha doesn't get what the news is. Hopefully you understand from what I just said that they're going to pause his current appeal, and now they're going to go back down and they're going to discuss these bones. Ellen says, how are Stephen's parents? They're the same. Lorraine says, I had tears when I seen Kathleen's tweet. Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it? Jinty says, why is it going back to the judge that denied the motion for the bones in the first place? Because that's how stupid our system is. And we have been on for an hour, so I won't be reading the rest of your comments because I really don't want to drag this on forever, especially since people will just be asking the same things. So, recap. The state approved Kathleen's stay in remand. So this will go back down to the circuit court to Judge Flowers to discuss this pelvic bone that Sweaty Sweat said isn't Teresa, yet Wiegert gave to the Hallback family in 2011. So this is a big win for Stephen. As soon as we know something else, we will post it. So I will end this live now, and I will move over to our other group, MAM Gossip, and I'll go live there for about an hour as well. So MAM Gossip is where we get more in depth into the case. So join us over at MAM Gossip if you still want to discuss. Until then, we'll talk soon, and think happy thoughts. This was a good day.